Bonjour. I hope that you're enjoying Crazy Train Podcast. There's been a very interesting theme lately with a lot of the women that I'm getting on the show. It's been like this boss babe thing. And it's not like I do it on purpose, it's just by coincidence. So, a few weeks ago when I was at the LAX Fan Fest, I decided to speak to this one female wrestler who happened to be the first Vietnamese female wrestler who's worked for Impact. She's worked for AEW, PCW. She also had her own heavy metal band and her own cosmetic line called Hellbent Glam. Let's welcome Viva Van, the Hellbent Vixen. What is your link to heavy metal?
Well, I used to be in a death metal band. The band was called Mocking of the Trinity, and I was a vocalist.
So when I first met Viva Van, the Hellbent Vixen, it was very interesting because I've seen so many Asian wrestlers, like of different ethnicities, but
Mm-hmm.
I believe you are the first Vietnamese American female wrestler.
Yeah, the first Vietnamese woman.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And what got you into it?
Um, I've always been a huge fan of wrestling since I was a kid, so I it was always a secret passion of mine, and I couldn't tell my family members because they wouldn't understand. Like, that's just something you don't tell your Vietnamese mom. Hey, mom, I want to be a pro wrestler one day. So it was just a secret passion of mine until I was in college, and I was not happy in college, and I wanted to go after my dream. So I looked up the nearest wrestling school, and that's how I got started.
Where was college? And did you graduate or did you just leave? Because it's definitely not something.
I I stuck it out and I graduated. College was Cal State Fullerton for me. I just ended up switching my focus to marketing, which is something that I love and I'm good at. So I switched to that, and I love it. I'm happy that I did that. But I stuck to college so that my family can't give me crap for it, and still went after wrestling at the same time.
Well, it's kind of interesting because in wrestling, especially nowadays, you really do have to do your own marketing. And a lot of people just fail to realize or fail to see that. So, in the long run, it's helped you, right?
Yeah, it has helped me a lot.
And what was the first indie you got started with? Was it with Rikishi or did you go somewhere else?
My first school that I started at was Santino Bros, and then I was there for about 2 years, 3 years, and then I ended up training. Now at Knox Pro with Rikishi.
That's awesome. It's such an interesting journey because everyone has their own journeys. Like it's more interesting, like far more interesting to
Yeah.
myself and also my listeners than some girl that sees an ad on like casting networks or wants to go on Tough Enough because it's cool and I could be a fitness model. Yeah, no. What do you think the toughest thing has been? Like when you went to that school, what would you say? Like, what was your feeling? Were you scared? Were you not sure what to expect? And hey, are the teachers going to be good or am I going to get paralyzed or something?
So it was really tough. My first day, they really worked us. I think they're trying to weed out the people who actually wanted it. So the very first thing they made us do was run 5 laps. Five, just for starters, okay? Then I realized that they never made us do 5 laps again after that. It was just the first day. So I think they made us do a bunch of like grueling workouts to just see if we can handle the pressure of how the boot camp style workouts, and we're definitely tough enough to be in the ring. And it was scary, it was hard, but I felt like the moment I stepped in the ring, I felt like I belonged. And so I stuck it out. I'm happy I did.
Yeah, I'm happy you did too. And I'm sure a lot of fans are as well. So has it been 2 years or 3 years you've been wrestling? Because you're fairly new, yeah?
Yeah, it's gonna be 4 years for me since I made my official debut, but I've been in the business for about 5 years.
And what do you think the hardest thing is just going around the indie circuit, aside from like the pay sometimes or not getting paid?
The hardest thing is probably hmm. The hardest thing working in the indie circuit will probably be just, I think, just like working smart and not like hurting yourself. You have to like make sure your body's okay for the very next match. People don't realize that indie workers work a lot. We work all like every weekend. And sometimes we'll work 3 times that weekend. So I think that's the hardest thing is just that. And also being away from family and you miss a lot of birthday parties and stuff like that. So that's another hard thing. I don't know why that wasn't the first thing I thought of being away from family.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think about my cat. Like,
Yes.
I just adore him. I used to have cats before, and that was like the big deal. Like, you set yourself up for heartbreak at some time because I had six of them. I don't know
Yeah.
how I did it, but yeah, but it's just one of those things you always miss. Would
Uh,
so now you think your family is very supportive of what you're doing?
yeah, they are. They love it. They're happy. I'm sure they're happy that I graduated college.
Hey,
But
yeah.
they're happy that I'm doing everything that I can to be able to like protect myself and be successful in life.
It's interesting that you say that because there's so many indie promotions out there. Now you're out there wrestling and actually trusting someone completely, like someone you maybe never met before, with your
Mhm.
body and your
Yeah.
safety.
Yeah.
How do you weed out those situations? Because it kind of freaks me out. I've worked on some shows where, like, oh, well, so and so is going to bump you. No, no, they're not. I don't think so. Like, how do you weed this out?
Um, I don't think it's just weeding like I wouldn't call it weeding it out. I would just like know what I can do. Like I adapt to what, like if I know someone is not at the level of like I just know like if someone's not fast like you or someone's not everyone has different styles, right? You just know like when you watch their work cuz what I do is that I like to watch people's work before I wrestle them. And that's how I get a feel of their style. So I'll know like what are their strong points, what are their weak points cuz I already know my strong points and weak points, right? So I just try to adapt to their style and not do anything that would hurt the both of us while you know, protecting the both of us. So
That's interesting because it's such a, I mean, when you get guys like 300 or 400 pounds bouncing
mm-hmm.
you around a ring, it's
Uh-huh.
really a scary thing because I'm like, oh, I think like I'm between like 107 and 110. It just depends how much, like how many sweets I've had this week, and I've been really bad. So it's just such a scary moment. And like I get the whole adrenaline rush, and you're gonna stick in this, you're gonna stay here for a while. That I know, that I could tell. Do you feel like you want to go to the WWE, or are you happy? Like, because I know everyone knows you at PCW Ultra, and that's a great company, by the way.
I am I'm happy because I am still living my dream as a pro wrestler, even though I'm not signed yet. And yes, the ultimate goal is to be signed by someone like WWE or AEW or AAA, that is the ultimate goal. But I try to just remind myself to enjoy the journey right now because I love what I'm doing. I'm happy with what I'm doing, and I don't want to like belittle my own career just because I'm not signed right now. And there's a lot of great unsigned talent right now, a lot. So I definitely think the indies we're thriving, we're doing good, we're well. Yes, it would be great. It'll be awesome, or like a dream come true to be signed. But I'm trying to not like focus too much on that, you know.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's such a, I think the indies are finally thriving because we had this whole downslope like for a little while. And then now we have the whole extreme wrestling coming back. And I've never seen these girls, like these girls are bleeding and they're gigging, they're
Yeah.
smashing stuff all over their, like all over themselves. I felt bad like throwing a chair at someone because it's not a guy. I'm like, you sure you're okay with this? Yeah, no problem. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna whack you a few times with a Singapore cane. It's no big deal, but you'll get welts on your back. Do you ever think you'd go that far with wrestling, like going to the point where like the Mindy Knuckles and the those luchas from Mexico, they're bringing these girls, these are brutal women.
Yeah. When I first started training and I first learned about death matches. I was like, I'm never doing any of that, but I ended up kind of doing it. So it just happens. It's just like I don't know, when you just wrestle enough times, you're just like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's go for it.
I mean, you girls, like, so, some of them are, they're really pretty like you are. They look like models. And yet you have this photo of a crimson mask on their faces, and it just is, this whole thing where it's just I'm coming back into this whole game now and I'm just seeing all these changes. And being that you were a wrestling fan at one point, where have you seen like women's wrestling specifically evolve these days? And do you think they're overdoing it in some places more than others, possibly?
I don't think anyone is overdoing it for women's wrestling. I think we still have we've like evolved so much. First of all, like I'm so happy how like things are going for women's wrestling, but I do think we need more than one women's match on every show. We need more. And we can go. Like people love watching women's wrestling, and sometimes like there are certain promotions in the indies where the women's match we get the most views. So give us more,
I
more slots
agree.
on the card.
What do you what do you think wrestling lacks nowadays? And wait, how old were, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you started watching wrestling?
I was in third grade, so how old was that? 9 or 10 years old.
Okay, so
8 or 9 years old when I started watching it.
all right.
Around the time I started watching it.
And what would you like to see more of these days, aside from like a few more women's matches, which I think should happen in each show? What else do you think a lot of companies are lacking these days,
Mm,
or that you miss?
um, I don't think I miss anything from back in the day because I think that like there's so much improvement for women's wrestling. So I like where it's at. I'd rather it be where it's at than go backwards. I don't think it's lacking anything. I think we're just still growing. The whole industry is still growing as a whole. So yes, just more women's matches. Like just push the women more.
Yeah,
That's
we
what
had what was it, a women's tournament. It lasted like 2 hours. It was nice, but then there's a death match tournament after that, and I think the whole show ended like at 3 in the morning.
Oh, that's a long show. Wait,
Well,
so did it
yeah,
start really late?
I
Oh,
know. I'm like, I hope the next show isn't going, but as soon as I hear the T word, like tournament, I'm like, okay, let me just have some Coca-Cola or like Fago. Have you ever worked for the Juggalos for ICP?
no, I haven't.
And what about Lucha Underground, AAA wrestling? Have you done Lucha before? Have you worked in Mexico? I think you've worked there, yeah?
Yeah, I've worked in AAA a few times. I haven't done Lucha Underground. I came a little after that, I think.
Now, I've seen a lot of wrestling matches in Japan, and those girls seem really stiff. Have you been to Japan yet? And is that somewhere you'd want to work?
Yes, I do want to go to Japan. I would love to go to Japan. I love their style. And you know what? In Mexico, they're very stiff out there too, but that's just the culture and the way it is. And I think it makes everything look good.
Well, yeah. I mean, getting back to the whole heavy metal thing, they call like people refer in death metal to Mexican death metal fans as satanic Hispanics. And the shows there, it's true because they're brutal. And I lived in Brazil. Those
Uh-huh.
pits are pits like I've never seen here or anywhere in that world for that matter. And, you
Yeah.
know, it's brutal. It's like maybe it's a cultural thing because they're very passionate, like hot tempered and
Mhm.
fiery. And it's
Yeah.
really a whole other thing. So, right now you're doing the wrestling, and then what do you have? I know that you have a makeup line, which is really super cool because you
Mhm.
are glamorous. Tell us about that and why vegan.
Well, I just feel like vegan products are probably like the best thing because I love animals. I don't want to test on animals and I don't want to use products that test on animals. So if I were to create a product, I'm going to follow the same beliefs that I have for myself. So I started this company right after I graduated college, and it was literally right in the middle of the beginning of the pandemic where nothing was going on. There's no wrestling going on for me. I just graduated. I'm bored. I have nothing to do. Let me just put my degree to work and create something that I love. So I created like liquid lipsticks, but the my favorite thing that I created was an eyeshadow palette. And I pretty much created a small palette that had all the colors that I've ever wanted in one with glitter. So it's half eyeshadow and half glitter. And after that, I just felt like I made my palette. I'm good. I haven't came up with another palette yet, but usually when I do eyeshadow, I feel like I use like 3 different eyeshadow palettes. So that was the main goal for my eyeshadow palette, is that all the colors that I use in these 3 different ones, they're all in one place, in one area. So
It's
that was
interesting, huh? Well, dude, because you say that, and I was just thinking of Tarte. Like I use Tarte on my eyes sometimes, and they never put black or super dark brown in a palette like a small one.
Yes, yeah. They never do. They keep it somewhere else. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna keep black. I'm gonna keep my highlights and then the blending color with the glitter. So we have everything in one.
And what is your fascination with death metal music? Like, what was your first concert you went to, and what got you into singing in a band at one point? Because that's pretty badass.
My first concert was a local LA show at the Black Castle when it used to be. I don't think it's around anymore, right?
I love that place. I love
Yeah.
it. Yes.
And I remember the 2 bands that I saw was Filled by Fire, and there's one more band, one band that headlined. I like My memory is not the same. I forgot the name of that band, but I think it started with an E. But they they yeah, that was my first one. Was Bill? I just remember Phil by Fire being there, but there's one more band that I went to go see, and I just can't think of their name because they quit shortly after that. But yeah, that was my first local LA metal scene, and when I went there, I was like, you know what? I really like this. It was my senior year in high school. And I was like, I really like this. I really like the music, and I'm gonna start going to more local LA shows. It's gonna bother me. I'm gonna try to find that band's name now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Of course, it's not Exodus because they're still touring.
No,
There's
no.
one called Exile. Then you have an Entombed Flag, but that's a whole other story. That's so weird. Yeah, now I have to know the band. Now, yeah, you don't see that many like female singers. I remember when Angela Gossow first came out in Arch Enemy, that was like the big thing that year, and you had like Lacuna Coil.
Yeah.
So, who were some of your favorite bands? And I'm still going to let you find that because now I'm curious that you listened to growing up that inspired your metal palette.
So Angela Gossow was one person that I saw that I was like, if she can do it, I can definitely do it. I wasn't a huge Arch Enemy fan, but just seeing her, like, I loved her music and the way she performed on stage. But I was more into like, I guess I had many different phases when it came to metal. Like, I had my thrash metal phase, right? Where I listened to nothing but Megadeth and Metallica and Slayer. And then I went into a glam metal phase. I don't know why I did that, but I did. I went through a glam metal phase where I loved Dokken and yeah, Dokken was my favorite glam metal band. What else? And then eventually I went back to thrash metal, and then eventually went to heavier stuff like death metal. I went to black metal for a little bit, and I was like, you know what? I don't really like black metal. I'm gonna go back down to death metal. And the type of death metal that I like to listen to is like old school death metal. So death is one of them. I love Swedish death metal too. So I love Unleash. I love Necrophobic. So those type of bands are usually the vocal styles that I try to go for. But it took me like going through different phases of metal to find it.
I hope you're enjoying the ride on Crazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. So if you are, do me a huge, huge favor. Woo! Please go ahead. Go on to Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever, but Apple's great. Give me a nice rating and review. Send me a screenshot, and I promise you, I will send you a special goodie bag. So please rate and review Crazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. And in exchange for that, once I see the DM with the review and your name and address, I will get those gift bags out to you. I'm not going to tell you what's in it.